And that, dear Zarlin 7, is why we Galactic Alliance members consider humans the most delicate species in the known universe. I proclaimed, puffing out my chest feathers with satisfaction in my detailed explanation. Zarlin 7's tentacles fluttered, which I interpreted as confusion. But Secor, if humans are so fragile, how have they managed to last this long? And why are they allowed to participate in deep space missions? Zarlin 7 asked. I couldn't help but emit a series of sharp, staccato clicks, our equivalent of laughter. Oh, you naive hatchling, they're not actually permitted on deep space missions. They insisted on coming along. And well, have you ever tried arguing with a human? It's like teaching a Terran slug quantum physics. Utterly futile and messy. Zarlin 7's eye stalks drooped slightly. I'm not following. Could you elaborate? I sighed, my beak clicking with mild irritation. Very well. Let me recount my first encounter with a human. It's a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the universe. It all began on the Galactic Alliance's flagship research vessel, the Celestial Crest. I had just been promoted to chief xenobiologist, a position I had coveted since I was a fledgling. The ship was abuzz with excitement, or in the case of the Bants, literally buzzing, because we were about to welcome our first human crew member. You must understand, Zarlin 7, that humans were still a novelty within the Alliance. We had only discovered their primitive world a few cycles ago, and many of us thought it would be better to leave them to their own devices. But no, a brilliant strategist in Alliance High Command decided it would be a grand idea to include one of these barely evolved primates on our most advanced research vessel. For diversity, they claimed, and for interspecies cooperation, they chirped. Personally, I suspected it was for their own amusement. But who was I to question the wisdom of our esteemed leaders? So there I was, standing in the docking bay with the rest of the senior staff, waiting for this human to arrive. I had studied their physiology, of course. It was my job, but nothing could have prepared me for the sight of a human in person. The airlock hissed open, and in waddled the strangest creature I had ever seen. It was tall, taller than me, and I'm considered quite imposing among my kind. But while I was covered in sleek, aerodynamic feathers, this creature was entirely exposed, with pale pink skin stretched over a frame that looked as sturdy as a flimsy bug. Hello, everyone, it said, its face contorting into what I later learned was called a smile. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, your new xenolinguist. It's an honor to be here. I leaned over to my colleague, Dr. Screech, and whispered, Great Nest Mother, it's even uglier than the holograms. How does it even manage to stand upright without a proper tail? Dr. Screech's feathers ruffled in agreement. Forget standing. How does it survive without proper plumage? One solar flare, and it'll be cooked faster than a corpin in mating season. Dr. Chen was making her way down the line, shaking appendages or tentacles or pseudopods with each crew member. When she reached me, she extended her hand, 5 writhing digits splayed out like some sort of mutant starfish. Dr. Kaur, I presume, she said, still smiling that unnerving smile. I've read all your papers on avian-like species across the galaxy. Fascinating work. I reluctantly touched my wingtip to her hand, half expecting it to crumble under even that gentle pressure. Yes, well, I muttered. I'm sure you'll find our work here quite advanced compared to what you're used to. She laughed, a strange melodious sound that made several nearby chitlins scurry for cover. Oh, I'm counting on it. I can't wait to learn from all of you. As she moved on to greet Dr. Screech with her bizarre handshaking ritual, I couldn't help but think this would be a very long mission. Indeed, the first few days were, to put it mildly, an adjustment period. Dr. Chen seemed determined to integrate herself into every aspect of ship life despite our best efforts to keep her confined to her quarters. Take meal times, for example. The first time she walked into the mess hall, you'd have thought a ravenous glop beast had appeared. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, mandibles froze mid-chew, and I'm pretty sure I saw a gelatinous blob start to dissolve itself in sheer panic. Hi everyone, she chirped, seemingly oblivious to the terror she was causing. Mind if I join you? Before anyone could offer a polite refusal, she had already plopped herself down at our table, right next to poor Dr. Screech, who looked like he might faint on the spot. So, she said, unpacking a container of what looked suspiciously like biological matter. What's on the menu today? I managed to find my voice first. Dr. Chen, we weren't expecting you. Surely you'd be more comfortable eating in your quarters with your special dietary needs. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, don't worry about me. I brought my own lunch. I'm dying to learn more about everyone's cultures, and what better way than over a meal? With that, she popped something in her mouth and began to chew it right there in front of everyone. Is she grinding her food? Whispered a horrified Blazin at the next table. I tried to distract from the gruesome spectacle. Dr. Chen, perhaps you'd like to tell us about your work in xenolinguistics instead? Her eyes lit up, and she launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her research, pausing occasionally to shovel more food into her mouth. I must admit, despite my initial revulsion, I found myself intrigued. Her theories on cross-species communication were not entirely primitive. As the days went by, the crew slowly began to adjust to Dr. Chen's presence. Some even sought her out, curious about this strange, delicate creature eager to learn about everyone else. I, however, remained skeptical. Surely it was only a matter of time before the harsh realities of space travel proved too much for her fragile human physiology. My concerns seemed justified when, about 2 weeks into the mission, we encountered an ion storm. For most of us, ion storms are a minor inconvenience, some static in our feathers or scales, perhaps mild disorientation for the more sensitive species. But for a human, I was sure this would spell the end of Dr. Chen's space adventure. As the alarms blared and the ship rocked, I made my way to her quarters, already composing the somber message I'd have to send to Alliance High Command about the tragic loss of our human crew member. I keyed open her door, bracing myself for the worst. Dr. Chen, are you? Oh, hi, Dr. Kaw, she called cheerfully from where she was hanging upside down from a bar attached to the ceiling. Just getting a quick workout while we wait out this storm. Did you need something? I blinked, my nictating membranes working overtime as I tried to process what I was seeing. You're exercising now? She dropped to the floor with a grace that seemed impossible for her bulky form. Sure, no sense in wasting time. Besides, in microgravity, you have to stay active or you lose bone density. Didn't you know that? I most certainly did not know that, and I wasn't about to admit it. But the ion storm, aren't you concerned? She shrugged, a surprisingly fluid motion for a creature with such rigid shoulders. No, it's not so bad. Reminds me of the thunderstorms back home. Kind of soothing, actually. Soothing? She found an ion storm soothing? I began to wonder if perhaps we had underestimated these humans after all. But it was the events of the Zorx Incident that truly opened my eyes to the surprising resilience and, dare I say, usefulness of our human crew member. We had stopped at a remote outpost to resupply and allow some of the crew to stretch their limbs. Dr. Chen, naturally, insisted on joining the shore leave. The Zorx Incident proved to be an eye-opener, not just about Dr. Chen, but about the surprising adaptability of humans in general. It all started when we docked at the remote outpost of Harneth Station, a desolate place known more for its strategic location than its comfort. The station was a hodgepodge of metal and synthetic materials, hovering in the middle of an asteroid field with only a thin atmosphere to keep it from becoming a floating ruin. As the crew prepared for the resupply operation, Dr. Chen was buzzing with excitement. She had been pushing to experience more of our diverse cultures and insisted on joining the shore leave. I had my reservations. After all, the station wasn't exactly a luxury resort, and the asteroid field surrounding it presented some genuine dangers. But Dr. Chen was adamant, and her enthusiasm was hard to ignore. Upon arrival, we were greeted by the station's liaison, a grizzled Raxer named Kraw. Raxers are known for their formidable presence, with scales like armor and eyes that miss nothing. He gave Dr. Chen a skeptical look, but greeted her politely enough. "Welcome to Harness Station," Kraw rumbled. "I trust you're prepared for the conditions here?" "Absolutely," Dr. Chen replied brightly, giving him what I now recognized as her trademark smile. "I'm really looking forward to seeing how things operate here." As we proceeded through the station's narrow corridors, the crew split off into their designated groups, either to handle resupply tasks or explore the station's facilities. Dr. Chen and I were paired together, partly because I had taken on the role of her guide, and partly because I was curious about how she would handle the station's austere environment. Kraw led us to the station's main processing area, which was a hive of activity with various species going about their tasks. The air was thick with the smell of recycled air mixed with industrial lubricant, and the ambient noise was a constant hum of machinery and conversation. Dr. Chen's eyes darted around, absorbing every detail with an enthusiasm that was almost childlike. "This place is amazing," she said almost to herself. "I didn't expect to see so many different species working together in such a compact space." I nodded, though I wasn't quite sure what to make of her reaction. Yes, it's a unique environment. Many species prefer Harneth for its strategic advantages, but it's not the most hospitable place. As we continued our tour, we passed by a group of Xarn, a species known for their complex hieroglyphic communication and their tendency to get engrossed in their tasks. Dr. Chen, ever the inquisitive scientist, asked them about their work, her genuine interest evident in her voice. To my surprise, the Xarn responded with enthusiasm, explaining their project with a detailed narrative of their current work. Dr. Chen listened intently, occasionally asking questions that delved deeper into their processes and objectives. The Xarn, usually reserved, seemed to appreciate her curiosity and engage with her more openly than they might with others. Later, as we made our way to the dining area, Dr. Chen took a moment to express her appreciation. "I can't believe how accommodating everyone has been, and the variety of food here is incredible." The dining area was a stark contrast to the rest of the station, brightly lit with colorful displays of various cuisines from across the galaxy. Dr. Chen eagerly sampled dishes from different species, including some I found quite unpalatable. She didn't flinch, her enthusiasm undiminished by the sometimes unappealing textures and flavors. We were in the middle of discussing the intricacies of xenolinguistics when an alarm sounded, causing the entire station to shudder. The lights flickered, and a tense murmur spread among the staff. "Attention all personnel," a voice crackled over the intercom. "We are experiencing a malfunction in the primary shielding system. All non-essential personnel are to return to their quarters immediately. Repeat, all non-essential personnel to your quarters." I exchanged a glance with Dr. Chen, my concern evident. We should head back to the docking bay. Dr. Chen, however, looked undeterred. "I'm fine. I want to see how they handle these situations. It's part of their daily life, after all." Before I could argue, she marched off towards the control center, her determination clear. I followed, worried about her safety, but also curious about how she would fare in such a situation. We arrived at the control center just as Kraw and his team were working frantically to stabilize the shielding systems. The station's walls groaned under the stress, and sparks flew from exposed conduits. Dr. Chen moved with surprising agility, dodging obstacles and helping where she could. She asked questions, offered suggestions based on her research, and generally seemed more composed than anyone else on the team. Her presence was reassuring, and the crew responded positively to her calm demeanor and practical advice. Despite the chaos, the issue was resolved within a few hours, thanks to the combined efforts of the station's crew and Dr. Chen's unexpected assistance. As the emergency subsided and normal operations resumed, Kraw approached us. "I must admit, Dr. Chen, your presence was quite fortuitous today. Your calmness under pressure and your ability to assist were impressive," he said, his tone more respectful than before. Dr. Chen beamed. "Thank you, Kraw. I just did what I could to help. Everyone here was incredible." As we finally made our way back to the docking bay, I couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. Dr. Chen had proven not only her resilience, but also her value to our mission in ways I had not anticipated. It was becoming clear that our human crew member was not just a fragile newcomer, but a remarkably resourceful and adaptable individual. Perhaps, despite their apparent delicacy, humans had qualities that made them well-suited for the challenges of deep space exploration after all. The aftermath of the Zorx Incident left an air of unease among the crew, but it also brought a newfound respect for Dr. Chen. Her performance during the crisis had demonstrated a resilience and resourcefulness that many had previously doubted. As the Celestial Crest resumed its journey through the galaxy, Dr. Chen's presence became a subject of intrigue rather than skepticism. The following week, the crew was tasked with a routine survey mission on an uncharted planet. The planet, designated as Xylon 12, was a rocky world with extreme weather conditions and a thin atmosphere. It wasn't an ideal location for any kind of long-term research, but it held potential for valuable data on planetary formations and atmospheric phenomena. The initial plan was to send a team to collect samples and perform atmospheric tests. Dr. Chen, eager to contribute and learn more, requested to join the expedition team. Despite some initial hesitation, the senior staff agreed, recognizing her determination and acknowledging that she had earned a place among us. The landing was rougher than expected. The atmosphere was more turbulent, and our descent was accompanied by jolting turbulence that rattled the ship. As we touched down, the planet's surface was a bleak, gray expanse, punctuated by jagged rock formations and swirling dust clouds. Dr. Chen, dressed in a specially designed suit to protect her from the harsh environment, was a bundle of energy. "This is incredible," she exclaimed as she stepped out onto the alien terrain, her voice amplified by her suit's communication system. "I've read about extreme planetary environments, but experiencing one firsthand is amazing." I accompanied her and the team, overseeing the mission's scientific aspects. The atmosphere was thin, causing our breath to come out in visible puffs, and the ground was uneven, with rocks and crevices everywhere. Despite the hostile conditions, Dr. Chen moved with surprising agility, navigating the terrain with a determined grace. As the team set up equipment to collect atmospheric data and soil samples, Dr. Chen took the opportunity to gather her own observations. She interacted with the crew and the various species present, discussing their findings and even sharing her own insights on planetary science, which surprisingly complemented our own research. In the midst of this, a sudden storm rolled in. The winds picked up dramatically, whipping dust and debris across the surface. Visibility dropped to nearly zero, and the sensors on our equipment started to falter. "Everyone, secure the equipment and head back to the ship," I ordered over the comms, my voice strained against the howling wind. Dr. Chen, however, was absorbed in her work. "Just a few more samples, Dr. Kaw. This data could be crucial." Before I could respond, a particularly strong gust knocked her off balance. I rushed over, helping her to steady herself. "We need to go now, Dr. Chen. This storm is too dangerous." She hesitated for a moment, her determination evident, but she finally nodded and began gathering the remaining equipment. The crew quickly secured everything, and we made our way back to the ship, struggling against the fierce winds. Once back on board, we huddled in the decontamination chamber, the airlock sealing us away from the storm. As we shed our gear and began to assess the damage, Dr. Chen looked exhilarated despite the ordeal. "That was intense," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "But the data we collected will have to be analyzed later," I interrupted, concerned for her safety. "You need to be more careful. This planet is unforgiving." Dr. Chen nodded, her expression still vibrant with enthusiasm. "I understand, Dr. Kaw. I'll take more precautions next time. But think of the scientific advancements we might gain from this." Her excitement was contagious, and despite my concern, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of admiration for her. Dr. Chen had proven once again that her resilience wasn't just physical, but mental as well. She embraced the challenges of space travel with an open mind and a fearless spirit. As we resumed our journey, the crew discussed the mission's findings and reflected on the experience. Dr. Chen's contributions were a hot topic of conversation, and many of the crew members expressed their appreciation for her efforts. In the days that followed, Dr. Chen continued to integrate herself into ship life. She engaged with various crew members, participated in research discussions, and even started to give impromptu talks about her findings and experiences. Her presence was becoming more accepted and even valued. One evening, as we gathered in the common area for a brief respite from our duties, Dr. Chen joined us. The atmosphere was relaxed, with soft ambient lights and soothing music playing in the background. She was surrounded by a small group of crew members, sharing stories from her home world and learning more about ours. I observed from a distance, feeling a sense of satisfaction. Dr. Chen had come a long way from the anxious newcomer we had first met. Her enthusiasm and adaptability had not only won over the crew, but had also made her an integral part of our team. As I watched her interact with the others, I realized that perhaps the human species was not so fragile after all. They might be different from us, but their strengths lay in their resilience, curiosity, and unyielding spirit. Dr. Chen had shown us that even in the vast, harsh expanse of space, there was room for all kinds of life to thrive and contribute. The universe was a place of endless wonders and challenges, and with crew members like Dr. Chen, we were better equipped to face whatever it had in store for us. The days following our harrowing experience on Xylon 12 were a mix of routine and anticipation. The Celestial Crest continued its mission, now equipped with valuable data from the planet, and the crew settled into a rhythm that included regular interactions with Dr. Chen. Her presence had become a welcome addition, and the initial skepticism had all but faded. As we approached the end of our current mission, the crew prepared for the final leg of our journey, a high-stakes diplomatic meeting with representatives from the Oritans, a species known for their advanced technology and complex political landscape. The meeting was crucial for forging alliances and securing resources, and it was to be held at the Oritan Diplomatic Station, a gleaming structure orbiting their homeworld. Dr. Chen was buzzing with excitement as we neared the station. I've read so much about the Oritans and their technology. This is going to be an incredible experience. I couldn't help but share in her enthusiasm. The Oritans were a fascinating species with an intricate history and advanced knowledge that could benefit the Galactic Confederation. Our mission to build stronger ties with them was one of the most significant tasks we had undertaken. The diplomatic station was a marvel of engineering, an elegant fusion of metal and light, with sprawling observation decks and a central hall that was a testament to Oritan architecture. As we docked and disembarked, the Oritan representatives awaited us with a mixture of curiosity and formality. Among them was Ambassador Velen, a tall, elegant figure with a long, flowing robe and an air of regality. Her eyes, which were multiple, observed us with a piercing gaze. "Welcome to the Oritan Diplomatic Station," she said in a melodious voice that resonated with authority. "We have been looking forward to our discussions with the Galactic Confederation." The meeting commenced in the Grand Hall, where representatives from both sides engaged in negotiations and discussions. Dr. Chen, though not directly involved in the political aspects, was given an opportunity to present her findings on xenolinguistics and her observations of interspecies communication. She spoke eloquently, her presentation highlighting the importance of understanding diverse cultures and finding common ground. Her insights were well received, and even the stoic Oritan seemed intrigued by her approach. As the day wore on, the negotiations progressed smoothly. The Oritans were impressed by the Confederation's proposals, and the discussions became increasingly cordial. By the end of the day, an agreement was reached that would enhance cooperation between our two species and pave the way for future collaborations. As we concluded our activities and prepared to leave, Ambassador Velen approached us. "Dr. Chen, your contributions have been invaluable. Your unique perspective has enriched our discussions, and I believe it has strengthened the bonds between our species." Dr. Chen's face lit up with pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Ambassador Velen. It's been an honor to be part of this historic moment." As the Celestial Crest set course for our next mission, the crew gathered for a celebratory gathering. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. Dr. Chen, now fully integrated into our team, shared stories of her experiences and engaged with the crew, who had come to appreciate her as more than just a curious addition, but as a valued member of our family. I found myself reflecting on the journey we had undertaken, both the physical journey through space and the journey of understanding that had taken place. Dr. Chen had challenged our preconceptions and proven that despite their apparent fragility, humans possessed an inner strength and adaptability that made them more than capable of handling the trials of deep space exploration. As the stars streaked by the observation windows and the Celestial Crest continued its voyage, I felt a sense of satisfaction. We had faced challenges, forged alliances, and grown as a crew. Dr. Chen's presence had been a catalyst for growth and understanding, demonstrating that even the most unlikely of beings could make a profound impact. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries yet to be discovered. But with each step we took, with each new species we encountered, we were reminded of the boundless potential for connection and cooperation. Dr. Chen had shown us that despite our differences, we were all part of a greater whole, and together, we could achieve great things. As the crew settled in for another leg of our journey, I looked forward to the future with renewed optimism. The stars ahead were a promise of adventure, discovery, and the endless possibilities that lay beyond. And as long as we had crew members like Dr. Chen, I was confident that we would face whatever came our way with courage, curiosity, and a spirit of unity.